welcome back to No Life Karen. My name is Hallie, so grateful to have you all. So every, I would say, month, I do a fun astrology video. I haven't done this in a while. I was actually recommended by a member that I do it. And I decided to do this because I was like, you know what, I haven't done this in a while. I'm about to start 2025 predictions, so if you have any recommendations, put them in the comment section. For any celebrity that you want me to do a reading on for 2026 predictions, excuse me. We're on 2025. So yeah, I'm going to do this list of she suggested my least favorite sign, and I will do it. I did it I think 2 years ago again. I initially did it 4 years ago. I updated it 2 years ago, so I only find it fitting that I do it again. I cannot believe that was 2 years ago, but it was 2 years ago. Insane. Okay, so my list has changed. Not too much. Some of them haven't really changed, but my list has changed. My least favorite, who I think was my least favorite then, 4 years ago, 2 years ago, is Libra. And unfortunately, even though I do have some sweet, kind, loving Libras in my life, majority that I have met, I have not got along with. Not that I don't get along with them, I just don't like in the shadow side that they can be very passive aggressive. I cannot stand passive aggressive people. I need to know where you stand and what your true opinion is, you know. And it's funny because my rising is a Libra, but I don't get along with them. Some apps say my rising is Libra, some apps say my rising is Virgo, so I think I'm on the cusp. But anyway, so I think that's why I just, as a Sun and Aquarius, I like to know where somebody stands. And it's funny because they say usually Sun and Aquarius get along with Sun and Libras. That's why I dated a few Sun and Libras before, and then I was like, let me get off this train. It's not serving me at all. So I don't like the passive aggressive. I like people that are upfront, know what they want, and up to the point. And I found that Libras in a lot of work situations have stabbed me in the back. They would act like my friends and then kind of either gossip about me or turn things that I've said and twisted it and then lied about me. In fact, I had two former managers that fit that description very, very well. Very, very well. They act like, oh, hi, sweetheart, you know, and then just be completely fake. And I can't stand that. Not fake people. So that's my least favorite. This one is a big change because they went from my second favorite to my 11th favorite. It's my second last. Leo. And the reason I've changed my mind on Leo is that I've had to accept, you know, they are my opposite sign. And I've had to accept the reason why they were my favorite before was because of my aunt and my grandfather. They were both, my grandfather was a Leo, my aunt is a Leo. I love both of them very dearly. They do not have the qualities that I'm talking about, but I don't like Leos. Let me start off with what I do like in Leos. They're very bold. They're often leader type. But the shadow side about lots of Leos is they can be extremely selfish, and selfishness is my least favorite quality in a person. You know, especially sometimes when you're friends with Leos, they'll only do things to benefit themselves. They won't really check up on you if they need to, stuff like that. That really upsets me. And they always have to be the leader. If they're not the leader, I see them, they kind of throw temper tantrums and stuff. And they too can be extremely fake. I've seen Leos be extremely, extremely fake. Yeah, so that's why. They remind me, I say this all the time. You know how Regina George in Mean Girls, if you watch Mean Girls, if you haven't watched Mean Girls, I highly recommend you watch Mean Girls. Regina George in Mean Girls says, which Sagittarius do this too, but which is, we'll get to Sagittarius. But you know, in Mean Girls, with Regina George is like, oh my gosh, I love your bag. It's just like, that's the ugliest bag I've ever seen. As soon as the person walks away, that has been my experience with a lot of Leos. Like, oh my gosh, I love what you're wearing. 2 seconds later, that is terrible. I cannot believe what she's wearing. I've seen it firsthand with a lot of Leos. In fact, I had this, it actually really hurt me. I had this colleague that I thought were as close as colleagues could be, you know, because your people at work aren't really, well, at this place, they weren't my friends. At my current job, I have friends, thank goodness. But one of them, I got this like Sephora perfume set for free, and I wanted to give it to people because I was like, I'm not gonna use all the perfume, and I wanted I knew that she specifically and other people liked perfumes, and two other Leos too. I gave it to. So at the time I thought were cool. So I gave it to her, and I was like, oh my gosh, I love. So I was like, this is like choose any perfume you want. And then I found out through the person she was standing with that she said that I put a curse on someone that I was no longer friends with, because this person ended up like breaking her leg or something like that, and that I was the one that did it because we had a fight like the week before, and she said that I practiced witchcraft, so that's why then she didn't want to take my perfume, but to my face she was like, oh my god, I love it, and that person that told me wasn't wasn't cool with her. So, I mean, excuse me, she wasn't there when everything happened. So how would she know? If, So I knew she was telling me the truth. It was just so heartbreaking because I'm like, I did this out of the kindness of my heart, and that's what she says. But Leos can be like that. A lot of them are very mean girl, fake, two faced, and I don't like that. So which leads me to my second, my third least favorite, which is Sagittarius, which is very similar energy. They can be like similar with that, the Virginia George. Even though I do have some Sagittarius in my life that I love. My favorite ex is Sagittarius. So I don't want to take away from that. They can be extremely funny and clown like. But I've seen a similar trait, the two facedness. I cannot stand fake people. It's very hurtful. When you do something, especially with that Leo, when you do something from the kindness of your heart, and somebody thinks that you're doing it as like a way to get that person back, or like I don't know how to explain it, but like sometimes with fire signs, they can be looking for another motive, somebody just being nice. And that quality I really don't like. I've seen it in Leos, I've seen Sagittarius, sometimes Aries, but Aries are more upfront about it. They'll say, hey, are you doing this because of this? But with Leo and Sagittarius, they can kind of keep it to themselves, tell other people, and then laugh about the person, which is very hurtful. And I've had that with Sagittarius. I've spoken about my high school friend who told my secrets. She didn't tell me to my face when I be doing it. She just went and told people. So that kind of like mean girl thing, I think a lot of fire signs, particularly Leo and Sagittarius, have this mean girl quality that they're never really called out about it. If they are, they lie to get themselves out of it. And I really, really don't like that. It's my least favorite thing. Number 9 is Pisces, and they also went from being at the top to being at the bottom. Even though one of my really dear friends is a Pisces, I have had a lot of fallout friends actually with Pisces and Cancer. Mostly Pisces because this is my thing with Pisces. I think that they're very intuitive. They can read people very well. They have a sense of spirituality that they use what the powers are, being very intuitive and spiritual and knowing things about people against people. Actually, one of the worst people I ever worked for was a Pisces. He was evil. Honestly, he did some very evil things. I can't really get into it too much. But I've seen that Pisces can have a very jaded wickedness to them, that I really, really don't like. So that's why they're number 9. Number 8, we're going to get more positive. I swear. Number 8 is Cancer, and even though I have some Cancer friends, they're not high up. I'm sorry to my Cancer friends, because some of you have really been so lovely, taught me wonderful things. You're so compassionate and empathetic, kind. On the other side of that, I've had some Cancer friends that I'm no longer friends with. Actually, I did mention this before, one of the videos I did about Cancers, is that there was a time when I went through like releasing Cancer from my life because some of the Cancers I was attracting in my life was so incredibly toxic and jealous and mean spirited that I had to release them. I've spoken about a friend that I had that I said, oh, I would love, she had a hairline and I wanted to start my skincare line, and I asked her to share some of her supplies with me. She said she wasn't going to, and then she kind of insinuated that I was copying her, which I wasn't copying her at all. And every time it was time to support her, I was there for her, which I found to be the shadow side of Kansas. when it's time for not my dear friends, particularly one friend I have, she's so supportive, she's great. But the shadow side of cancers that I've seen is they can be very jealous of other people. And it's to the point where they stop their own shine because they're so jealous of other people that it gets in the way of their own progression. And for me, I've not always gotten this right, and I had to actually learn this a lot. In my mid 20s, I learned that there's there's something for everyone, and everyone, even though at school they condition us that there can only be one winner. It's a complete lie. Yeah, there's one winner of a race, and there's grading in school and in courses. But in life, as long as you're living your best self, you're doing the best that you can. You don't have to be a millionaire. You don't have to be um, um, a super successful story. You can invest money, have your own house, live in the suburbs, and still be your best. It doesn't have to be a competition, but I feel like cancers are sometimes competing with the wrong idea. At least at what I've experienced, they sometimes compete to be number one, similar to fire signs, but not as aggressive about it. It's kind of like a passive, in a passive way. So number 7 is actually my sign. It's Aquarius. And even though like I love Aquarius, I either really like Aquarius or I really don't like Aquarius. There's no in between. I suppose that's why the midway of the um, list. But Sun Aquarius, I feel like when I see Sun Aquarius celebrities, they are my least favorite. Oprah, Ellen DeGeneres, a few others, especially housewives, uh, except for Crystal Minkoff. She's an Aquarius housewife. Denise Richards, I love from afar. I don't know her, but I love her from afar. Um, but just I've dated mostly Gemini and Aquarius men, and the Aquarius men I've dated, we've been more like friends. But what I don't like about Aquarius is that, and I've had to work on this in myself. Everything I'm saying about Aquarius, I'm either working on or have worked on myself. Sometimes we can kind of avoid being truthful to people because we think that we kind of build up stories in our head. And I actually had this colleague, right? We got into a dispute, and he said something. He said that I thought something that I had not even thought of. But he was so convinced because he had come to his own conclusion, which I used to do this a lot until I had to realize I have to communicate with the person because I don't know everything. And Aquarius, sometimes we think we know everything, and even though we have a lot of knowledge and we tend to be quite intelligent, there's still room to grow. Similar with Pisces, there's still room to grow, and there's still room to be a better person. We don't know it all because we're the second last zodiac. So many of us have lived many lives. We tend to be like old souls, but being old souls requires having a new mind. And I had a yoga teacher used to say this all the time. He used to say you can practice yoga every day of your life, and every practice is different. And you have to look at life like that, not like Groundhog's Day that everything's the same. But and I've seen Aquarius become like that, very jaded. Everything's the same. People are always out to get me. But and that is valid sometimes. Sometimes Aquarius can be really bullied, but it should not jade us. Nothing in life should jade you. You can go through your emotions, you can feel the way you want to feel, but to hold on to 10 years, 20 years of anger is a waste of time. And I've seen some Aquarius do that. So if you are in Aquarius, our shadow side, we can become jaded. But please, anybody in life, don't ever become jaded. It's a waste of time. And you have so much more to live for, if you're still alive. That's all I can say. So with 6 is Capricorn, and I have a love-hate relationship with Capricorns. um, I have Capricorn on my chart, quite a lot of Capricorn on my chart, and I see my Mercury is in Capricorn. I have two other placements. I have Stellium and Capricorn. But in relationships, I don't do well with them. In romantic relationships, I don't do well with them at all. because I like to communicate. Capricorns tend to not really be big communicators, and they kind of their show of love is that they like to do things for people, which is nice. I appreciate that, but my love language is communication. I love talking to people about philos- philosoph- philosophizing. Is that the word? I was trying to be smart. Being philosophical about life. Till like 3 a.m., 4 a.m., just talking about things. Um, but I feel as though Capricorns are. This is not bad. It's just not for me. They tend to be very. They lack vulnerability, and for me, I like to be very vulnerable. I like to be very open, but they're very sheltered and they're very guarded, and it kind of makes me not really want to be around them. I haven't really had bad experience with Capricorns. My last relationship was with Capricorn, and that was the experience that we had. But I was in the wrong too. I was very mature. I needed to grow, so I'm not going to place all the blame on him. I do wish him well, and I've let go of all the anger that I had towards him. But I just see that, you know, we're just not a good match. Capricorn and I, friendships, except one of my favorite aunts is this. Excuse me. One of my favorite aunts is Capricorn. She's so sweet. And she's very vulnerable. I think a lot of Capricorns, they tend to be avoidant personalities. And avoidant personalities, I don't do well with at all. Because something I've had to heal from being anxious attachment. And anxious attachment, when we come into contact with avoidance, which is something I've learned through therapy, I have to just let them be. If they want to be around me, they do. But our love style is I'm going to make them love me. And it doesn't work out because Capricorns they just like to be the stubborn in the way that they are. You can tell them, oh, can you send me a message? Oh, can you do this for me? If, like, they love people the way that they want to love people. So they don't, they're not malleable people, in my opinion, from what I've seen. Um, yeah, which is not for me. Okay, so number 5 is Taurus, and Taurus is number 5. Taurus has gone up because I met so many lovely Taurus. I used to really struggle with Taurus because they can be very direct. But the older that I get, the more that when I was younger, I used to like live in a cloud, and I think that's why I used to be close with a lot of Libras. And I was like, I just want people to tell me nice things, and they can say whatever they want behind my back. I don't care. But the older that I've gotten, I've realized I'd rather be said to my face. And Taurus can be very direct. They're very honest. A lot of them I met, they don't have this mean spiritedness. I've yet to meet a Taurus that has this mean girl mean spirit. I'm sure they exist, but what I love about Taurus, they just are the way they are. They'll tell you to your face, even if it's like it's not mean girl, it's direct, and I prefer that, especially because my mom's been Taurus, and I just appreciate it is like this, as especially the older that I get. They're just very reliable, dependable. Which Capricorns too are reliable, dependable, but mostly Taurus. I've seen they're very reliable, dependable. They don't really change, which I don't really like. That's why I never used to like them because they're very set on their opinions, set. And I like variety, especially Santa Cruz. I like to hear different opinions. I have my own opinion, but I do like to hear others. But they don't want to hear other opinions. They know what they want. They're very like this, which is not for me. But I appreciate it because we need that in life. We need to have people that are direct. Sometimes when they speak, it's like, okay, you don't have to speak to me like that. I know you have an opinion, but you know. But sometimes they think that their opinion is the most important, and that's kind of a problem. That's why they're not on my top of the list, but they are pretty high. So I appreciate you, Taurus. Number 4 is Aries. I was torn between 4 being Aries or 3 being Aries, but they are high on my list because I do appreciate Aries. Sometimes they can be kind of bratty, stubborn, rude, as we all can be. They just wear it on their chest, But what I really appreciate about Aries, when they're sweet, they are so sweet. When they're supported, they're so supported. And they have almost like this innocence to them, similar to Geminis. They have this innocence to them, and they have this sweetness to them, and they have this playfulness to them that sometimes they can have this mean girl thing, but it's not coming from a bad place. I feel like with Leos, it's coming from a bad place. With Aries, it's not. It's just coming from, oh, I just want to fit in for today, and then tomorrow I'll change, which I really appreciate. Aries, I feel as though I don't know, I'm just very fond of Aries, maybe because my sister's in Aries, but I really think I get along very well with Aries. Nothing is ever personal with Aries. Their mood is never personal. I have an Aries friend, and about like 2 years ago, I said something to her, and I thought she was responding to me, and I was like, "Did I do something to you?" She was like, "No, you didn't do anything at all." But she was just so much in her mind. Similar to Gemini's, it's never personal, and if it is personal, they'll come to you and they'll tell you, which I really, really appreciate. So number three is Virgo, and even though sometimes I have issues with Virgos, I think sometimes they can be very too work driven and too kind of materialistic driven, but they make great friends, very supportive, loyal, honest. I really appreciate honesty in people, and they kind of can have problems being dependent, but I appreciate what they bring to life, and they're often very hardworking, honest, loyal. I have a dear Virgo friend. She will never, if she's your friend, she will never say a bad thing about you, ever. And I really, really, really appreciate that. It makes me, I adore her so much. And a lot of Virgos are like that. They're very, you know exactly who they are. They're not going to pretend just for the fun. And number two is Gemini. Surprise, surprise. I always speak about how much I love Geminis. They didn't make number one because number one, that zodiac sign has a very deep place in my heart. But Geminis are number two because I think that as a sun in Aquarius, I get misunderstood a lot. Um, but I see Geminis being more misunderstood and embracing it, you know. And I see them, they're often like the rebellious, they're very intelligent, highly creative, highly, highly creative. My midhaven is in Gemini, so I think that's why I relate to them a lot. But I just really like Geminis. Even if I haven't gotten along, I've had some arguments with Geminis. I've had some friends, Geminis, that have screwed me over. But as a zodiac sign, I appreciate them. I appreciate what they bring to the zodiac chart, to the zodiac seasons. I appreciate what they bring to life. The creativity. They say what's on their mind. I really, as an Aquarius, I really appreciate that because sometimes I'm like, I can't always say it, but they come and they're like this, 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 this. I'm like, thank you. Somebody said it. Somebody said what needed to get said. They're also very, even if I don't like them as a person, I can appreciate the purpose in life, which is often to lead the world of communication and bring like a playful, fun energy to life, which I really, really appreciate. I do think they are the most intelligent of the zodiac signs. I really, really believe that. Even though Aquarius will fight me on that, I'm Team Gemini on this one. I actually just remembering I saw this TikTok a long time ago, and it had three twins, right? Or I suppose the triplets, and they were in a car. They were like those viral triplets, like from 3 years ago, and it said Aquarius, Gemini, and Libra. And Aquarius is driving the car, obviously, would be driving the car. And Libra is next to Aquarius, and Gemini's in the back. And Gemini's in the back, like going off and blah, 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 blah. And Aquarius is like, what is this person saying? And then Libra starts to open their mouth, and Aquarius looks at Libra like, you shut up. Which is very much how we are with Libras and Gemini's. We're like listening, okay, like Gemini's just blah 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 blah. We're like, okay, that makes sense. After the whole round, we're like, okay, that does actually make sense, But you have to go all around to just get to the point. But we do get their vision after they've explained it. So shout out to Gemini's. I appreciate you guys a lot. Number one is of course Scorpio. Even though my relationships with Scorpio, romantic relationships with Scorpios have not worked out. I had a very jealous ex. It was a Scorpio. And I still wish him well. You know, his birthday's coming up soon. It's Scorpio season. Even though I have no romantic feelings for him at all, will never have them again. I still appreciate him and his music. He is a famous musician. But it's funny because Scorpios, I even if I go through hell with them, I still appreciate them. And mostly as friends. I think that Scorpios, I get along so well with the woman, Scorpio woman. I appreciate them so much. And something that I appreciate about them is that they are very honest. They're very true to themselves. And you don't really see them like going along with the pack. They stay very true to themselves. I have a dear friend who I absolutely adore, and she's never been a follower. Scorpios in general, they're not followers, and they can read people so well. I don't know what I have with Scorpios. I don't really have Scorpio in my chart. My Aquarius moon is on the cusp of Scorpio, but and my Pluto's in Scorpio. But I just have this fondness for them. Also, really love Scorpio season. I love this time of year. It's my favorite time of year, and I also really just love how Scorpios, you know, when you do them wrong, they use that as a way to elevate. You know, they use that they they transform energy, and they're often very spiritual. They're often very, especially the women. I really appreciate Scorpio women. They have this directness, this honesty, this purity that is very sincere. That I really appreciate. I'm a huge fan of Scorpios as a whole, and particularly Scorpio women. They make some of the best friends that I have. So genuine, supportive. You know, if I tell a Scorpio friend I have something, they're like a lot like about my app. For example, I had this friend that I hadn't spoken to in a while. I texted her about my app. She was like, "I'm downloading it. I'm telling all my friends to download it." That's the kind of people that Scorpios are. You know, when you that's the positive about the relationship I have with the Scorpio. Uh, if I gave him like an astrology that I used to watch said this, and she said if you give Scorpio just a little love, they'll give you a whole bucket of love. You know, they're very giving, appreciative. I just have so many good things to say about Scorpios, and I know people don't see it, but get to know a Scorpio and you'll understand them. You'll understand why they're like that, how they don't fake the funk. If they don't like you, they just don't like you. And it's not like they'll be out to get you, which I think happens to Leos. Leos will not like you. Then they'll smile in your face and they'll be out to get you behind your back. Scorpios, if they don't like you, they just don't like you. And it's nothing bad. They can coexist, but they just don't like you. And I think people misunderstand that for being vengeful, but they're really not like that. I'm a huge Scorpio fan, and happy Scorpio season. I didn't even mean to do this during Scorpio season, but happy Scorpio season. Happy birthday to all the wonderful Scorpios. Um, I appreciate you all so much. You have no idea, and I really wish other people would too, because I really do believe Scorpio is the best zodiac. I have for a while. I can't remember if they were number one or two on my list, but I've always been since I since about 10 years ago. I've been a fan of Scorpios and Gemini's because I get them and I understand what it feels like to be misunderstood. Because I do think Scorpios are misunderstood. So thank you everybody for watching. Please list below what your favorite sign is. I do like to read it. I'll see if I agree with you or not. But thank you for watching, everybody. I love you all. Take care.